Okay, all right, so being 6:30 and having quorum, I'll go to item 1. I'll call the Bridgewater Planning Board to order. Today is Wednesday, March 6th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Item 2, we have an executive session this evening. So we do have a governor's remote meeting and guidelines. I'll read those when we come out of executive session. So item 2, the planning board will enter into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449, Mass 444, 2007, to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation in the case of John P. Weldon as trustee of the Weldon Properties Realty Trust versus Patrick Driscoll and all, 54 Grange Park, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the planning board. And so the chair so declares to seek the advice of legal counsel. So do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
By Mr. Geller. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rojas. Was that Ms. Rojas?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? I'll take the roll. Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Haley.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald is not with us yet. Is that correct?
He is here.
Mr. McDonald, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yes.
And I am a yes. So we're going to go into executive session and we'll open it back up to the public when we return. Okay, so we're out of executive session. I'll go to item 3. Before we go to item 3, public hearing, I'll read the, does everybody let back in?
Yes.
I'll read the governor's extension of the remote meeting. The meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the provisions of the open meeting law pursuant to the governor's approval of the supplemental budget bill. Temporary provisions of the open meeting law have been extended to March 31st, 2025. Specifically, the further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location, and to provide adequate and alternative access to remote meetings. The language of this extension does not make any substantive changes to the open meeting law other than extending the expiration date of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025. Members of the public are encouraged to participate remotely and shall address the questions through the chair of the board or our host this evening, Mr. O'Brien. I'm Patrick Driscoll, the chair. Mr. McDonald is with us, the vice chair. Mr. Stephen Geller, Ms. Astrid Rojas, and Mr. Edward Haley are all voting members this evening. We do have an alternate member this evening, Ms. MJ Spagon. During the meetings, all votes will be roll call. The following Bridgewater Town staff are also participating with us remotely this evening. Mr. Robert Rulli, our Community Economic Development Director, Mr. Shane O'Brien, our Town Planner, Ms. Tristy Jane, the Assistant Town Planner, Mr. Greg Tanzi, the Town Engineer, and Mr. Solari, the Building Commissioner. At this time, everyone's mics are muted. The board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting, and as items appear on the agenda, the project's representative mics will be unmuted. If the project is a public hearing, which we have 3 this evening, and allows for public comment, we ask that you use the chat feature to ask your question by listing your name and your address and your question. The host of the chair will recognize the questions in order. You can also use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu, and you'll be unmuted when the chair or the host recognizes you. Again, please state your name and your address before asking any questions. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. So the way the public hearings will work this evening is that we'll ask the applicants to make their presentation. We'll then open it up to board and staff comments and questions, and then we'll open it up to public comment. So this evening, we have under item 3, we have a continued public hearing for 1185 Pleasant Street, map 72, lot 1. This is a site plan review. The applicant is the town of Bridgewater for a proposed fire station headquarters with a waiver request, and this is continued from February 27th, 2024. So if the representatives for the town are here, welcome to give your presentation.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Brian Humes, representing Jakunski Humes Architects. We are the applicant for the town of Bridgewater regarding their application for the Bridgewater Fire Headquarters at 1185 Pleasant Street. A little background on our involvement. We were retained by the town of Bridgewater in June of 2020 to investigate the possibilities of a new fire headquarters for the town. That's how long this project has been going for me, and I understand that the fire department has been seeking new facilities for much longer than just 2020. So this is a project for the town that's been in the works for some time. We finished up our report of findings in December of 2021, utilizing the property at 1185 Pleasant Street for the location of the fire station. It's town-owned property, and the proposal was put in front of the voters in the spring of 2022 through a public referendum vote where the town overwhelmingly supported the construction of the fire station at 1185 Pleasant Street. Following the referendum, we were then authorized to complete construction documents, and we brought on consultants, retained them for purposes of engineering and civil engineering. And that's when we reached out to Strong Point Energy Solutions in West Bridgewater. And I have Eric Diaz on the presentation with me tonight. Eric is a Bridgewater resident, working on behalf of our firm to put together the civil engineering while we handle the architectural solution. The project that you're going to see tonight is a new fire headquarters of 2 stories, 26,560 square feet, taking care of fire apparatus bays, fire administration areas, and also a training tower for public safety training for use by the fire personnel. Also on the site is a storage outbuilding, a 1-story, 5,184 square feet storage building for additional storage for supplies and equipment, which is located behind the main fire headquarters. For site improvements, Eric's going to go through the site improvements, but the building is set back 300 feet from Pleasant Street. This is due to the site conditions that exist with some wetlands. I do report that on February 22nd, the Conservation Commission did conclude their review, and the applicant received unanimous approval from the Conservation Commission to move forward and place their recommendation for the project. Included in our application tonight is our 7 waiver requests pursuant to section 6.3.5 of the zoning ordinances. And those are outlined in the town planner and assistant town planner comments that we received dated March 5th, 2024. We are also in receipt of town engineer comments dated February 5th, 2024. In addition to what we're presenting tonight, I just want to also indicate that this project has been overseen by a building committee that was formed by the town of Bridgewater. The building committee is made up of citizens of the town, residents of Bridgewater. They have been working with the design team, overseeing the design, recommending the architectural solutions, overseeing the site and site improvements. And in addition to the building committee, we've been working closely with the fire department themselves, and fire personnel have been involved in all the planning of the facility. Understanding the needs of the facility has been conducted through the fire department. So this is a facility that is fully vetted by the building committee, fully vetted by the fire department personnel, and recommending that this is the facility that would meet their needs well into the future. Also in February of 2024, just last month, there were neighborhood meetings conducted. to gauge any concerns from abutters to the property. The abutters did attend the meeting, and for the most part, they were very positive about the project as presented. They were obviously concerned about noise and activity on the site, but they generally were in agreement that they appreciated the effort of positioning the fire facility 300 feet back from Pleasant Street. And the abutters felt that that was an improvement instead of having the facility right on Pleasant Street itself. So I will turn the presentation over to Eric, again from Strong Point Engineering. Eric will go through some site development items, and then he'll turn it back to me, and I can go over the architectural solution.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, members of the board and staff. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer, Strong Point Engineering. If it's okay, I'd like to just share my screen and walk through some the aspects of the site itself and of some of the more pertinent items in the design. And Zoom is telling me that everybody can see my screen now. Is that correct? And Shane is nodding his head yes, so I'm going to
Yes.
go. This is the existing condition. We are all the existing conditions sheet, excuse me. We're all very familiar with this property. If you are standing on the street looking at it, immediately to the left of this is the transfer station. So this has been vacant for some time. I believe there was once a house in this location toward the front, and there's still a curb cut there. The site is obviously has a good amount of wetland coverage on it. The wetland was delineated by Ken Thompson, who is a very good wetland scientist some time ago. He did identify and certify a vernal pool in this location. And that will kind of come into play as I explain why the site is laid out the way that it is. So just bear with me for a moment. Obviously, this area where you see my cursor here is the viable upland portion of the site where we propose the bulk of the proposed fire station development. We have gone through this area. We've done a substantial amount of test pits and test borings out here and actually found some reasonably good soil conditions. And I think those are helped by the fact that this area is higher in landscape. Obviously, you can see from the contours, there's a fairly good drop off in grade that we have to contend with here. So all of those things do kind of come into play as we discuss the design. Just a couple more things that I want to mention about the existing conditions. By chance, you can see this point here, the property line kind of necks in, and I'm going to zoom in just a touch. Where this necks in here, that is actually the end of the Mass DOT jurisdiction. So all of the improvements that we're looking at for the connection to Pleasant Street and things like that are outside of Mass DOT jurisdiction, which is helpful to us a bit. And just note that the site is split zone between the Gateway Business District and the residential AB. I believe in this case, the Gateway Business District will kind of override everything in the residential, but we have provided tables in information on the plans to indicate that even still, regardless of what district we're talking about, this site design does comply dimensionally, and we're not seeking any zoning relief in order to get this done. So I am going to scroll to the layout plan. So this is the layout plan for the site. Obviously, we talked about the wetlands in this location and on the site. The wetland that I should have noted before is a finger in the outer reaches of the Hockomock Swamp, which, as I'm sure you know, is 17,000 acres in size. And this is kind of the very, very end of it as it reaches Pleasant Street here. Excuse me. So I say that to say that that is why the entrance is positioned where it is. So in order to access the upland buildable portion of the site, we have to cross the wetland. And that's what makes this, under the Wetlands Protection Act, a limited project. We proposed a culvert over the wetland that will span the entire wetland. It is going to be comprised of 3 open bottom box culverts set adjacent to each other. It does meet all the applicable Massachusetts stream crossing standards and all of those things, which is obviously more of a conservation issue. But the reason it's pertinent here is that if you notice, this is the most narrow portion of the wetland on the site, right? We've got the vernal pool here, which is highly protected by the Conservation Commission and the State Wetlands Protection Act. If we were to shift this crossing in either direction, we would have a wider span to cross, and or we would have to stop filling wetlands. And once we stop filling wetlands, as I'm sure you're all aware, we open up kind of another can of worms from a permitting perspective, and obviously from a just conservation perspective. We try to avoid that as much as we can. So that's why this is positioned where it is. Let me zoom out for a minute so we can kind of talk about the rest of this. So you'll see with the entrance coming in here, we have a 3-lane entrance. There is an ingress and an egress for regular everyday passenger vehicles on the right side of this. And there is a dedicated exit lane for emergency vehicles on the left side. They are separated by a proposed landscaped median, and that is to just make sure that this area stays clear for emergency vehicle passage, so there's never an issue with cars being in the way and things like that. For this particular use, there is no parking requirement given in the bylaw. So the parking requirements that we're showing here have been developed in concert with consultation with the fire department, and we are currently proposing 50 parking stalls for regular vehicles. We have the adequate amount of handicap parking to go along with that. One of the waivers that we are requesting is with regard to the curb cut at the entrance to Pleasant Street. Your zoning bylaw requires only a 24-foot wide curb cut. Obviously, we need more than that to be able to traverse this. So the curb cut that we're proposing at this location is 120 feet wide to accommodate all 3 lanes, and a little bit of a bigger radius on the entrances than we're used to, and that is to serve the largest trucks that we have in the town of Bridgewater. There is a crosswalk proposed across that curb cut, and we do have handicap ramps meeting ADA requirements on both sides. And another waiver that we've talked about is a waiver for internal landscaping, just giving we do meet the amount of internal landscaping. We're required to have 5%. I believe we have closer to 10-ish%. But there is a section of the bylaw that requires some more internal median landscaping and things like that. And in a case like this, where we are tight on space because of wetland buffer zone requirements and things like that, we thought it was appropriate to request a waiver in that regard. We have proposed lighting all across this. We did submit a lighting package, but just in summary, everything complies with the bylaw. We've got 0-foot candles at the property lines. We've got some tall sight poles in the median here and in some of the landscape islands. And along the entranceway here, we do have lighted bollards, and we've even gone as far as providing specs for some of the overhead door lighting and things like that. That does bring me to another waiver that we've requested. The bylaw has a requirement for poles to be no larger than 20 feet. Given this location, where everything is sort of set back from the road, and in an effort to kind of minimize the number of poles that we need, we've proposed to go to 25 feet in this case. I'm just checking my notes before I move on to make sure we've got everything. Oh, and then as far as landscaping, I mentioned that we did meet the interior landscaping requirements, and we've also provided a screen along the property line on this side. And we've got some landscape spec requirements for that there for a dense vegetative screen included. Moving on to the grading and drainage design, this is where the site starts to get a little bit fun. Obviously, we've got some grade that we need to make up here, and we have some buffer zone constraints, which has made this a fun bit of a puzzle to put together. But as you will see, and I'm sure you've reviewed, we have retaining walls proposed just about around most of this site. If you follow where my cursor is going up the left-hand side here, and then along the right-hand side here, and again on the right-hand side of the property line in this location, we are proposing some retaining walls. And that leads me back to two of the waivers that we're asking for. They're very common. I know we've talked about these on other projects that I've done in Bridgewater. One waiver is to allow a height greater than 6 feet. We do have a maximum height in a couple of locations of 10 feet. If we look at reducing those heights, we would have to look at tiering those walls. And once we look at tiering those walls, now we have buffer zone encroachments into no build areas that the Conservation Commission won't allow. The other waiver related to retaining walls that we're asking for is to allow them to be constructed of the large modular blocks. I know we've talked about that as well on a few projects, and I know this board has allowed it from time to time. Couple of things with those blocks. One, they are structurally just as sound as any other kind of wall. In fact, I think some of these systems are approved to greater heights than 4 feet just right off the bat. They are a bit easier to work with, and they are more cost effective. In where we have so much wall here, going with another type of wall, for example, a poured in place wall, something like that, would just drive the price tag up on this quite a bit, and in my opinion, without a whole lot of substantial reason. With regard to the drainage design on this site.
So, Eric, could I ask you just a question about the walls, just while we're on it, just before I
Yes, sir.
lose my thought?
Absolutely.
So if you have a 10-foot wall with
Mhm.
those large blocks,
Mhm.
that wall is staggered back with a couple inches each block.
Yes, we have a detail, and I can even go to it that I think talks about the batter on each course. Let me see if I can find that detail.
So I guess it looks like the plan is just showing it's basically a 90-degree angle to the ground, right? So what suffers? Does the wetland encroachment suffer, or does the pavement area suffer?
Well, we have drawn them at a bit of a width to account for some of that, and they are only set back a half an inch per course. These blocks are, let's say, I believe they're 2 feet tall. So if you have a 10-foot wall, that's a 2.5 inch stagger by the time we get
All
from
right,
the.
so and I was looking at the detail earlier. That looked like that looked like it was a lot. So it's only a half inch. So over a 10-foot wall, it's only
5 inches.
2.5 inches.
2.5 inches, excuse me. Yes, you're right.
Okay.
So it's not as dramatic as unfortunately, the detail makes it seem.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just I saw that earlier, and then thank you.
No, of course, it's a great question. Let me just kind of get back to where I was if I can. All right. And so those are the retaining wall things. And then just getting into the drainage on the site. I'll give you the short version. We do have the ability to meet all of the stormwater standards. We've got a surface basin, infiltration basin back here. We have a couple of infiltration basins, some of which take subsurface infiltration, excuse me, some of which take only runoff from the rooftop, other ones that take runoff from the paved surfaces. Everything is equipped with water quality units to make sure that this stuff is clean before it gets infiltrated back into the ground. We are meeting or exceeding the water quality requirements. We are meeting or exceeding the recharge requirements in this case, which is great. And then going to the utility sheet. This one also has some kind of interesting things to talk about. So first, along Pleasant Street, there is a 8-inch, I believe it's an 8-inch sewer force main. We're going to be proposing to tie into that. So it will be municipal sewerage in this location, and we do have a proposed pump chamber that we've designed here, and we will be pumping out through a force main that will go over the culvert in this case. Electric, telephone, and cable utilities will go over the culvert here as well. We talked about the drainage. So the only thing that's not proposed to go over the culvert in this case is the water. Water we are proposing to bring between the edge of the vernal pool and the property line. And this was obviously a pretty hot button topic with conservation. So we've got two water services going in here. One is an 8-inch concrete line ductile iron fire line. The other is a 3-inch plastic domestic line. The reason that they're located here is that if they were to go through the culvert, the only options that we would have would be to go over the top of the culvert, which means for frost protection and things like that. We have to raise grade substantially, which means more fill, more walls, things like that. So we felt that that wasn't a great solution. We could go under it, but then it's completely unserviceable should there ever be a problem, or we could go through it, which I've done on other projects in certain cases. The issue with this one, to go through the culvert and daylight this line, is we'd have to insulate it. And where it's an 8-inch, the domestic water line is less of a concern because it flows all the time. An 8-inch water line, fire line, only flows when the hydrant's cracked or the sprinklers come on. So in the event that it ever froze and there was a catastrophic issue, we would hate to turn on the water and find out that we had an issue in that line. And I don't feel comfortable enough that we could rely on insulation just to do that. So we chose to bring it over here, even though it's a bit of a sensitive area where we can get adequate bury depths on it. Conservation Commission has reviewed this. They've required us to put together a pretty detailed installation guide, which we have. And they've asked for some third-party review on this vernal pool and its impacts, just to make sure that there's nothing that perhaps we haven't thought of for some reason. So that is and that will be installed during the dry season of the year, which is one of the conditions of the order of conditions. So that is the utility installation. And then from there, typical plan details. We've got an erosion control plan that meets all the requirements of the NIPDES program, which I won't bore you with the details on that. And then we go back to some details on the wetland crossing, which, as we talked about, 3 open bottom box culverts that do meet the stream crossing standards, and some temporary guidelines for an installation and things like that. So those are the finer points of the site design. I feel like I've been rambling on for a very long time, so I will just end by naming the last 3 waivers. One is the request to waive a transportation plan. Idea being that this location and this use was vetted well before the application was made for site plan review. Same request and reasoning with a fiscal analysis. And we have requested a waiver of the filing fee, so the town of Bridgewater doesn't have to write itself a check. So certainly that's what I've got on that. I'm glad to go at your direction, Mr. Chairman. I can either answer questions about site design, or I can turn it over to Mr. Humes and let him talk about architecture.
Now, why don't we stick to site design, Phil? Just because I have a bunch of questions that other people may as well. So
Yes, sir. That makes sense.
could you go back to like the right there? Perfect. Can you blow that up?
Yes. How's that?
So just looking at this, right?
Mhm.
I guess my biggest concern for the whole site is circulation.
Yes.
So is there what's the width of a fire truck?
We actually do have we did run a truck turn that we submitted to, I believe, the staff earlier, even before this application process, that was done based on Middleborough's largest truck. And I'm just blowing up the details of it here. What do we have for a width? Axle track is, of course, they give it in inches. It's 82 inches. So do some math.
I'm talking width, because what my question was related to. So this is good though. We can go over this first.
Sure. Yeah.
So what you're saying is Middleborough's largest truck, which is bigger than our largest truck. Is
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
correct?
Did I say Middleborough? I meant Bridgewater. Forgive me.
It's Bridgewater's largest truck.
Yes, forgive me. I got my towns mixed up.
Yeah, this is their aerial truck.
Yep.
And this can fit in with one, without doing a 9-point turn or a 3-point turn. This can easily maneuver that area without
Yeah, so what we've shown here, and you can see the wheel tracks are in red and the body path here is in blue. We come in here, and that's actually why we've enlarged some of the radii. I think we got 40-foot radii to be able to make the turns into the site. Truck would wrap right up here. Wheel track stays in the pavement. Although we do in this location have a little bit of body overhang, but we can certainly, you know, the driver can tuck in closer. We didn't get too carried away with that. And we can come up here, and this is the most difficult turn to get into the first bay from the back. And it can make it coming out. We would assume, you know, that if it goes in that bay, it comes out that bay, and it can again make its track through that path.
So,
and get
so my question was that 12-foot exit for the onto Pleasant Street from the garage bays there.
Yes.
It shows, you showed 12 feet, but it looks like that's from the middle of the wall to the middle of the island. So what is the actual pavement width? Because there's really no, is this all vertical granite? Is this all 6-inch vertical granite everywhere? The whole site?
I do not believe we are proposing vertical granite. We are proposed curbing is precast concrete curb.
So that's still 6 inches in width, correct?
6 inches in width, and the dimension, if we zoom in here on this lane, you can see this 12-foot dimension is from the inside of it's the paved width in that location.
And you feel that that's, I mean, to me, that just seems really tight for a pickup truck, never mind a fire truck. I mean, there's not a lot, if you have a 6-inch curb on one side and you have a retaining wall that looks like it's out of the ground with 1.5 or 2 feet with a fence on top. Does it make sense to remove that island so that and do something lower, like a rumple strip or something, so that there's no safety issue there? And then if it just, that seems like a very tight width for a fire truck.
Sure.
I mean, you guys are the designers. I mean, you feel that that's adequate?
Well, you know, I believe, and Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, the fire department has seen this and they didn't really take exception to that. If we feel that it needs to be wider, though, a couple of things that we could do, you know, this width on the opposite side is 24 feet wide of pavement, right? 24 is usually what we carry when we're backing out of a parking space, but we're not backing out of a parking space in this case. So we've got two 12-foot lanes. We could do 2 11s, slide this median over and make this a 14 to get us a little bit more room through there.
Back to my original question, what's the width of a fire truck? What's the width you designed that for?
Let me see if I can pull that up on the diagram. Because the diagram's all I have. I don't know why I did that. I don't need that. Wrong button.
Mr. Chairman, I will just say, having been involved in previous fire station designs, rumple strips and fire trucks don't get along.
Yeah, I'm just 12 feet just seems, I mean,
I don't disagree with that, but a rumple strip is not.
yeah, I'm just thinking
Everyone.
something, lower, that if they had to drive over it or they had to get around, they could, you know.
They don't want them driving over anything. It's just not good for fire trucks.
Sure. Let me just do a little bit of math right here for a minute.
A concern, Pat, with all these questions that you're bringing up, they make me think of weather conditions. I mean, it snows, right? So this study was done without bad weather. I mean, is there enough space for snow buildup? Has that been considered?
Well, that's a great question. That's what I was thinking. You have a plow go down there, they're pushing snow to either side. I mean, can a truck still get through there? That's all. Great
Yes.
question.
No, that is a very good question. So just back to the first question, the width of that fire truck, I have it about 10 feet wide.
So you have a hard concrete. I mean, you have a foot on either side of error. I mean, and you're going out of there pretty fast. I mean, it just seems to me like that's tight.
Sure, understood. Understood. I think we want to keep the median. I think that's important to have a clear delineation between where emergency and non-emergency vehicles can go. But like I said, we can look at adjusting this area through here and even sliding that median over. The median can get a foot less wide if it needs to. I believe it's 4 feet wide now. So we can certainly work with that.
I mean,
And-
instead of having a median, couldn't you just do like, couldn't you just do 6-inch vertical granite and just one row of it to delineate the, to pick up some area, something like that, just to pick up. It just, Astrid brings up a great point as well. I mean, I read somewhere that snow storage is tight on this site, and there's a note that it has to be taken off site. If during a storm event, they're pushing snow to the side temporarily, I don't know how you get through there.
Right, so let me address that for a minute. So yes, obviously we've shown some snow storage areas on the site. Unfortunately, none of which are very close to the entrance because we're limited on room right there. Now, one thing we're not going to want to do is plow snow into the wetland, right? We can't do that. So snow from this area would have to come out and either be plowed here, or it would have to be removed from this area.
Right, but if you have a plow going down there, your wall detail shows the pavement's what, 18 inches, 24 inches below the wall. So I mean, that's, you're gonna have snow build. I don't even think you're gonna have 10 feet once you plow that.
Sure. No, it's a good point. Like I said, I'm open to suggestion. We can shift over that median to get some more room through there. If we lose the median, we're gonna have to relocate the lights, but I don't know that that's necessarily the end of the world. So I'm open to suggestion, sure.
Can the whole width of the entrance get any larger, or is that the tightest that you can get it? I know you're going over the wetlands, but can you increase it by a foot and a half?
The short answer to that, physically, can it be done? Maybe. The longer answer to that is that it will require revision of some sort with the Conservation Commission. The other thing I can note is that we did leave on this side between the wall and the pavement. I believe there's a 5 or 6 foot width there, that we might be able to gain a foot or two in that location as well.
Well, that's for a sidewalk, right? So the sidewalk going up that way?
There is no proposed sidewalk on this project, no.
Mr. Gelli, you all said I don't want to interrupt you.
Yep, nope, I'm fine.
Eric, can you go back to that turning radius, the colored, the blue, yeah. So
There you
so as you come in off 104, right?
Yep.
And you're driving by those spots on the radius, is there 24 feet of pavement behind those spots?
Behind these stalls here?
Correct.
Yes, there's 24 foot. There's a 24-foot drive aisle there.
From the end of the paint, there's 24 feet, and that continues around the side, correct?
That is correct. Even
But-
where the island is, that's 24 all the way back, 24.
But you're saying the body, it's so tight there that the body is actually going over the pavement. Does it make sense to expand the pavement in that area?
I don't believe so, because if you look between the lines that are drawn here and the edge of the the curbing here, we certainly have the ability to pull in and get away from that. I don't think that's an issue.
And in the back, I mean,
Mhm.
it's tight going around that corner. And if there are cars parked in the spots to the right of that utility building,
Mhm.
and they're not tightly in their space, I mean, can the truck still get in there? Should we eliminate some of those parking spots? I mean, it looks like that blue line is going into those parking spots a little bit, right?
It is hugging the very end of them. Yeah, it is.
So I mean, you're gonna be wiping out cars, or you're gonna be backing up forward. I mean, does that make sense to remove those spots in that area? To allow easier turning, or does it make, it just, I mean, if you look at that blue line is right at the end, and it's almost in those, it's right at the end of those parking spaces.
Sure.
So what are those parking stalls, 9 by 19?
Let me go back. I got that note over here. Let me just confirm before I say the wrong thing.
I mean, I guess if there's cars in those spaces, can the fire truck still get in?
So that they're 9 by 19. And if there's cars in those spaces, if they're pulled in the way they should be, then the answer, this shows that yes, they can get in. If they are overhanging, there would be an issue. And one thing I'll note about those spaces, and maybe I should have mentioned this before, there is a public recreation portion to this project that is a kind of a requirement of it, that is my understanding. And there will be some sort eventually of future walking trail feature back here, and these spaces are intended to service that.
But couldn't those people park in the 6 spaces up against the building there?
They could, sure.
I don't know,
Well-
it just seems like that area is extremely tight. I just don't know how a fire truck's gonna make that turn.
Well, can those spaces move back further?
We
Yeah.
could get,
For the
we-
trails?
we could probably gain a foot or two, a couple of feet to push them back a little bit. I don't see a huge issue with that.
All right,
We did review this with the fire department, and they did review this truck turning, and some of these same items were discussed when we were reviewing this with the fire department. The fire department was comfortable leaving it like this and then setting up a test pattern within town and cone this off and check the turning radiuses in actuality, because they said sometimes this diagram doesn't even show it accurately. So they much prefer trying to cone this off and recreate these radiuses somewhere in town.
I know we can't predict the future, but do we have a plan on buying a larger truck?
There is nothing larger than they currently have, no.
so, all right, could you go back to that other plan, the site plan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course.
So just looking at the grades, it looks like most of the site's gonna be filled 5 to 6 feet. Is that correct? Or
That's
on average.
yeah, that's a fair assessment, sure.
So back to the entrance, right? So you come in pretty fast, I would imagine, out onto Pleasant Street.
Mhm.
What is their plan for a light there and signalization?
Yes, and this is a conversation that I think I mentioned with Mr. Rulli in the past. There's currently no plan for external lighting on the roadway in that location.
So, I mean, that's a busy road. Yeah,
Pat,
Mr.
are you
Gallagher.
are you talking about, are they gonna put up like a red light that when they get a call, it's gonna stop all traffic?
So,
Correct.
Mr. Chair, could I just weigh in on this?
Sure.
So the Transportation Committee has discussed this. I raised this issue too. Currently, there's nothing in the plan for emergency signalization. The police chief and myself and others feel that at a minimum, there needs to be an emergency signal as you're coming out of the site. Painting the road "Do Not Block" makes no sense because you're already in the block when there's an emergency. And in conversations with the police chief, he's suggesting that 300 yards in either direction needs to be an additional warning signal that there could be emergency vehicles coming out. So it's not in the plan. I was told there was no money for this signalization, but I think that you can't approve this without having emergency signalization.
And I think for the safety of the firefighters and the people in the vehicles and people in town response time wise, I think the minute they hit that garage door button to leave, they'd want red lights to stop traffic somewhere so they could blow right through. I mean, if they pull out and they have cars they have to wait to move or stop, I mean, that just seems ridiculous that
Yeah,
wasn't
and
factored in.
I agree. I mean, that's, I think, what the police chief's recommendation is. You have 300-yard signals in either direction, then also something right there. I mean, as somebody that travels 104 at very busy times, there's a ton of traffic. So it's like, somebody's gonna be stuck in the box if that's what your expectation is, that no one's gonna be there. I mean, that's just, we need to have those signals included.
So Mr. Dias, can you go back to so right here at like elevation 83 on the plan that you're showing? There's two sets of catch basins.
Yes.
They look like they're right up against the wall, and it looks like it's right up against the wall on the left side. So how is that? Is that grate gonna have to shift in 3 feet to accommodate the structure under it, or how is that getting put up right next to the wall there?
You can do an offset conic top to that catch basin to push it up against the side.
So it will go in that location. It'll be 6 feet in one direction instead of centered like 3 or whatever.
Yes.
The whole site is proposed to be the concrete curbing. I saw one of Mr. Tanzi's comments. He was asking where the vertical granite was and where the concrete is. That's not called out in the plan. Is that shown somewhere?
Yeah, we are proposing vertical granite at the 40-foot radius because there is vertical granite along Pleasant Street now. So each 40-foot radius, just to blend in with that, we're proposing the vertical granite, and then everything other than that is proposed to be concrete.
Okay. And then my last question, that 16 feet coming out, I see those parking spaces, 23 feet in length. Is that adequate 16 feet to get a vehicle outside of out of that building?
In this location here?
Yes.
I believe it is, yes. I believe it is. It'll certainly get a passenger vehicle out of there. But again, if we're worried about it being tight or something like that, we do have this kind of neck in here. There's no reason we couldn't kick this back out a couple of feet to get a little bit of extra room there. Excuse me.
Yeah. All right, other board comments or staff comments or at this point?
Mr. Chair, I mean, the Conservation Commission did approve this with conditions. One of the conditions was that there be a third-party review with respect to the vernal pool that Mr. Dias talked about, that, the water needs to come by. We're not sure if that vernal pool exists because of drainage off from the abutting property to the east, but that is being looked at. I don't know if recall if Mr. Dias mentioned that this is all also subject to with respect to the environmental, the Army Corps of Engineers signing off on this. So DP has signed off on it, but it's also because it's part of a larger watershed that ultimately flows into Narragansett Bay. The Army Corps has jurisdiction over that. So the Conservation Commission approval was conditioned on all of those things happening. I just want to make sure that's on the record.
And then Mr. Tanzi submitted a letter February 5th to us and to Mr. Dias. Mr. Dias, did you respond to that letter, or have those issues all been addressed?
I can address that, Mr. Driscoll. We tried to have a call with Mr. Tanzi last week. Mr. Dias and I were on. I mean, again, we're going to defer to whether Mr. Tanzi was looking this as a one-off or looking at what the size of the watershed was in terms of the amount of water storage that could occur. I think Mr. Dias and I are of the opinion that the Army Corps has ultimate jurisdiction over this, and that it will defer to them in terms of what their determination on that is.
Right, but Mr. Tanzi, I'm talking about the letter that he indicated a number of, he went through.
And we are too, and that's what I'm saying is that we had a call scheduled with Mr. Tanzi. He didn't make the call, and we're not sure if he's looking at this as a one-off site or he's taking into consideration the entirety of the Hockomock Swamp in its entirety terms of water storage.
Right, but there are a number of other issues. Just he talks about issues on each sheet about, labeling, and he talks
Okay.
about he talks about there being a release to the infiltration system. I mean,
Yeah,
have all those things been addressed, Mr. Tanzi?
Unfortunately, we didn't receive that second letter. There's two letters from Mr. Tanzi, and the one that Mr. Rulli is referring to is something that he and I had discussed previously. There is a second letter from Mr. Tanzi that was included in the staff comments that was issued to us yesterday. We have not had a chance to formally respond to those, but I have reviewed them, and I don't foresee an issue with making, satisfying those comments.
So that February 5th, I'm looking, it says first technical review. What Mr. Rulli was referring to was another letter that we did not receive, and that's a second technical review?
There was one review letter that was written to the Conservation Commission that centers around stormwater comments.
Right.
And then there was a second letter that was issued to the planning board.
Okay.
That said that includes additional comments. In that letter we just received yesterday.
All right, and that's the one I'm referencing. Okay. All right, so that you need to go through that and confirm or address his comments, correct?
We do, yes. The only thing I can say at this point is, like I mentioned, I did review them. I don't believe there's anything earth shattering in there or anything that we can't achieve. So I'm confident that we'll be able to satisfy those.
Yeah, just to confirm that as well. There wasn't anything in there that wouldn't be. I couldn't see not being conditioned on some sort of approval of the planning board. So I can just kind of spell it out too, but that was also included as part of the memo. I apologize if that wasn't forwarded to the board at a proper time.
So do we have any other board or staff comments at this point?
I do want to just reiterate that discussion. I'm sure it'll be continue to occur about that, the amount of traffic out there and the distance that we need to notify drivers to clear that path. I mean, I travel by there every rush hour, both directions, and it's at times quite often the parking lot during those times. So I guess we'd have to find that money.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the most likely time that they would need to leave anyways. So it's definitely an issue that has to be solved.
Any other board comment? We can open up the public comment and then come back to board comment.
So the only other comment I'm still a little concerned about, like you guys are, is that the entrance and that 5 or 6 feet on one side that I asked was a sidewalk, and you said is not proposed as a sidewalk. What is that proposed to be? And if it's not supposed to be proposed to be anything, why wouldn't we just take all that and make it open like you did on the other side?
Yes, through the chair. It currently is not proposed to be anything. We wanted to provide a grass shoulder where we could, partially for snow storage, things like that. It is not proposed to be a sidewalk at this time, so I think we can take advantage of it and get some additional width there if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, my main concern is the safety on Pleasant Street, like everybody else, and then the circulation. I don't see how that entrance works with that island the way it is, and I'm concerned about out back, the fire trucks getting in. And I mean, we want the site to work, and we want it to work efficiently. We want them to be able to maneuver the trucks quickly and without risk to them hitting a curb or side. I mean, 1 foot on either side of the truck between concrete on either side. I mean, that seems crazy to me. But let's any other board comments? We'll open up to the public for a few minutes, or as long as it takes, I should say. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this project? Shane, do you see anybody?
At this time, let me check our virtual hands. I don't see any virtual hands raised, nor do I see anyone in the chat.
All right, so I have a question to maybe staff. So just with the concerns about the circulation and having them revisit those and maybe move some things around. And to read Mr. Tanzi's letter to see if any adjustments need to be made. I mean, are we delaying anything if we go to one more meeting and have a clean set of plans to look at that works? I mean,
I don't know that you're necessarily delaying anything, as Mr. Dias can say. I mean, all of this is contingent on the Army Corps of Engineers approval. With the conditional approval from Conservation Commission, he can move forward with that approval. So, I mean, I think there's a little bit of breathing room.
But I mean, if that's the case, right? Not, I mean, and we want the egress to be safe, the entrance and the egress to be safe and to work. And we want to make sure that the turning radiuses work. And we want to make, if he wants to remove those parking spaces out back, and we want to remove that island, or move the island, or redesign that. I mean, doesn't it make sense just to have it continued for one meeting and have all those issues resolved? He just got the letter from Mr. Tanzi yesterday. I read through it this morning, and there were some things about adding valves to the infiltration bed to be able to drain it. You know, if those things all need to be added to the plans, doesn't it make sense to have that all done and then just wrap it up at the next meeting?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to impact. I mean, again, the Army Corps, as Mr. Dias and I both have experienced, the Army Corps does not move quickly. So I don't think there's any detriment to the project if we continue this to the next.
And how would we handle I mean, I guess they wouldn't, it's probably out of the scope of Mr. Diaz and his scope, but how do we handle the signalization of Pleasant Street? Do we just condition that and they have to figure that out between now and the end of the project, or do
I
we
think
ask?
that in terms of when you get to the point that you're going to either approve it or disapprove it, and if you want to make that a condition, I mean, I think that consensus of other people is that the emergency signalization has to be included in this approval. I mean, I haven't been to any community in Rhode Island or Massachusetts, similar situations where there isn't emergency signalization around a fire station. So I think it's, yeah, you have to include it. I mean, you don't have to do that tonight, but
No. And I don't, Mr. Diaz, do we want to go back to your team at this point?
I'm glad to. My portion of the presentation is certainly concluded, but I'm glad to kick it over to Brian and let him talk about the architecture if you like.
Sure.
Excellent. Let me stop my share so he can.
No, why don't you keep driving it? Oh, okay.
No, I can do it. I can do it. I
Yeah.
got the plans right here.
I'll back up and then just keep scrolling through and I'll narrate. As I stated earlier, there was a building committee involved with this. Also, the town had input on what the architecture was requesting to be. And you can see in my, actually, if you can see me in the Zoom, my virtual background is a rendering that we have of the completed facility. So you can see it more in a photorealistic image in my background. But the building has 4 drive-through bays. To the right is an identifiable main entrance. It's 2 floors on the right side of the building. It's a 1-story apparatus bay with mezzanines at the 4 bays. And then to the far left is a training tower. I'll start with the training tower because it's the tallest structure. Historically, you see a lot of fire stations with hose drying towers. But in this instance, with the new manufacture of hose drying is not a requirement, although this training tower can also be used for hanging hose and draining hose. The primary function of the training tower is for exterior ladder training and interior stair training, and also confined space training. for all of the fire training that happens. So they're using the outside of the building for, you see those squares on the building are access hatches that they could use to rappel and enter into a stair tower, which is on the other side. There's a balcony at the top that they can rappel down from or use ladder access up. There's louvers at the top, so that if they want to fill that training tower with smoke, they can evacuate the smoke and vent it out to the top. So all of this has been done in review of the fire department and meets all their requirements for training. So they will have some ladders going up on the outside just for purposes of training. The apparatus bay is what it is. It's identifiable. The front doors are side opening, side folding doors. The doors in the back are your standard overhead sectional doors that open up like a standard garage door, but the ones in the front open to the side, they're rapid opening, and that way it reduces the danger of clipping the top of the door before it fully gets opened, before the vehicle exits the bay. A lot of times the accidents happen when the driver is anxious and wants to get out of the bay and doesn't wait for the door to fully open. So these side folding doors clear the opening completely in a high rate of speed, and the door is open and available for egress. The lettering on the outside of the building further identifies the building as you're entering. We have conduits going out to Pleasant Street for additional signage, but that road sign has not been designed yet. The road sign is not part of the application, but the signage that you see here is, it's on the building. Below the signage are 3 windows that lead into a main community meeting room and also a training classroom for use by the community and also used by the fire department. It was a desire of the town to make this a 50-year plus fire station. They stressed the need for maintenance free materials. The exterior is brick. We've specified a brick coming from Bridgewater, so it's a local product. They being the building committee in the town, requested slope roofs. The majority of this roofing here is sloped. We have some small areas of flat, but the majority of it is pitched. All of the pitched roofs has been designed for future photovoltaic panels. That's the desire of the town. So it can accommodate future solar onto the roofs. The flat roofs that you see are accessed by stairs. So you have walkout access onto flat roof areas, and they will be providing mechanical supports for mechanical equipment on the flat roofs. We also have some mechanical equipment within the attic spaces of the building. So you're not going to be seeing mechanical units from the grade. So that's the architecture. I think it meets the aesthetic of what was being requested. It is maintenance free and attractive, in my opinion. About heights, one of the waivers is height. You have a 30-foot height in this location. Obviously, if we put flat roofs on this building, we would have maintained our 30-foot other than the training tower. But the desire for the pitched roof on a 2-story building brings it above the 30-foot, but we are within a 300-foot setback. We're not right on Pleasant Street, and we're within a wooded site. So I think that also meets the intent and aesthetics for Bridgewater. So, are there any questions about the exterior?
So, Mr. Humes, I think it's beautiful. So great job with the design, but just a quick question. I was on the, this board can't waive height. So when I was on the Mitchell School Building Committee, we had to go to the ZBA for a height variance. Bob or Shane, is that something that's going on now with ZBA? Does that have to happen or where are we with that?
Technically, it does. I mean, There's
Yeah,
a
we-
lot of
so- so-
surprises
so-
that are coming at me tonight.
So we can't waive the height, and the same thing happened with the Mitchell School, and it went to ZBA. So
Yeah,
I
you
just
don't
think-
have the authority to waive the height.
right, so they need to go to ZBA to get the height waiver, the
Yeah.
height variance.
Go back to your
I mean,
original
but-
question,
but-
Mr. Driscoll. This is gonna be a continuation tonight.
Yeah, but as far as, I mean, the building's beautiful. I mean, I just want the site to work, that's all. Any other questions for Mr. Humes or comments?
I thank you for your time.
Board questions or comments at this point? Any, before, I see somebody in the chat, Mr. O'Brien, did somebody send a chat? Is somebody trying to speak from the public?
I didn't see anyone in the chat.
I can't open it up. I just see chat with a red one. Can you see that?
Mr. Driscoll, I sent you a message in the chat. That might be what it is.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, so Mr. Dyers, do you have a pretty good feeling for the feedback we gave you tonight, or just?
Yeah.
just-
Just say, Mr. Chair, you have to open up for public comment if there's members from the public that want to talk.
We've done that twice. Are there any members of the public? We've done that twice already. Are there any members for the public that want to speak? Mr. O'Brien, last couple of times we checked, there were none, correct?
I did not see any virtual hands raised at the time when you spoke of the public comment.
I know that Carlton had his hand up previously, so
Oh, all right.
he's lowered it. So if he doesn't want to continue, that's fine.
Dr. Hunt, do you have any? Yep. Dr. Hunt, I see your hand up. go ahead.
Can you hear me? Is my voice coming through clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I agree with everything that was said about the site plan. One suggestion I have is if you can move that auxiliary building back 2 feet and move those parking back about 2 feet. I know there's a restriction in terms of the recreation. But if you can move that back 2 feet, I think that would clear a lot of the space. I know these drivers are good, but ice, snow, other things like that, just give them a little bit more room so they can maneuver better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hunt. Anybody else from the public? Any other staff or board comments before we take a motion to continue this to our next meeting? And staff, you feel it's how we should handle it at this point? I mean, we want to see some updated circulation improvements and things of that nature. So do you feel it's best to, Mr. Tanzi's letter of February 5th, we want reviewed? Do you think it's best to continue this to our March 20th meeting? Hopefully we can wrap it up then.
Yeah, I think if we're leaning that way, I think that's appropriate.
If there's no more board comments, does somebody want to make that motion?
No, I only got one more comment as we looked at the architectural plans, I know they're gonna relook at the front, but even the architectural plans, your bay doors are 14 feet wide, so you're having that go down to a 2-foot or 12-foot wide road leaving, so you're making it 2 feet shorter than the building, you're allowing it to pull into the building, so, but I know you're gonna review that. So.
Yeah, and
But
you're going a lot slower into the garage than you are down an aisle even, right? With
Right.
concrete on either side.
Correct. So with that last being said, I'll be more than happy to make a motion to continue this hearing till our next meeting on, what was it, March 20th at 6:30?
Is that right, Mr. O'Brien?
March 20th is next meeting, correct?
So we
I'll
have a motion.
second.
We have a motion by Mr. Geller. We have a second by Mr. McDonald. Is there any discussion from the board? Okay, I'll take the roll. Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you all, appreciate it.
Thank you.
this stuff away. All right, so next up, continuing our public hearings, we have 0 Auburn Street. This is map 79, lot 1, and portions of lots 2, 4, and 18. This is a 4-lot subdivision. It's a definitive subdivision pursuant to the planning board subdivision rules and regulations. This is also continued from our last, not our last hearing, but our hearing on February 7th, 2024. Is Mr. Gallagher and his team here?
Yes.
If you'd like to give your presentation, Mr. Gallagher, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Yep, I'm Frank Gallagher, Gallagher Engineering in Foxborough, and I'm here representing the applicants, Pilar LLC. So we presented, as you said, back in February. It's just a 4-lot subdivision, private road. It's on the south side of Auburn Street. So we did our presentation back in February. We had comments to address, mainly engineering comments. And so we did submit a set of revised plans with a cover letter that addressed those engineering comments. And we got a response back from the town engineer. I think we're pretty much there as far as addressing all of his comments. There were 2 items in his review that was still sort of outstanding. One of them, however, I think we addressed. What Greg was looking for was lot closure calculations. You know, a mathematical calculation of the meets and bounds of each lot to make sure that essentially they close, which means you pick a starting point, trace out all the meets and bounds, and you end up at that same starting point. That's a closure calculation. I actually submitted hard copies of that to the planning board, but I neglected to make a scan of that, so I didn't post it to the website. But Greg does have those calculations now, I know. And the other, there was a couple of other comments. We have a 6-inch water main in Auburn Street, and we're expanding that to an 8-inch main through our site. So we showed a detail of that. It's really called a reducer, but in essence, what it's doing is it's expanding from a 6-inch main to an 8-inch main through our development. We showed it in detail, but we didn't show it on the plan view. So Greg has asked that we do that. And then there was some questions about each lot. We show a development plan for each individual lot with a house and a septic system, and we show an infiltration area to put the roof drains into. And there was some questions about whether we had sufficient ground cover over those roof infiltration systems. But other than that, I think we've addressed every concern that was outlined with Greg. There was one other concern that was expressed at our hearing in February by one of the people who lived in the area. I don't know if it was a direct abutter or not, but it was someone nearby, and they asked, if you look at the cover sheet of our plan set, we showed a locus map, but the abutter asked that it be maybe a little more detailed to show just how we fit with the surrounding properties. So we changed the scale of our locus plan on the cover sheet to show, I think, a little more clearly where this subdivision is in relation to some of the abutting streets and the abutting lots. So that's it.
Do you want to share those sheets? So do you want I know we have them, but just for the public's benefit.
Yeah, let me just see here. Just 1 second, if I could, let me just see. Oh, no, it's not it. That isn't it either. I'm sorry. Hmm. Okay. I might have it. Okay. Can you all see that?
Shane, do
No.
you have to let Mr. Gallagher share the screen? Do you have to authorize that?
No, it's been allowed.
Okay. Let me try it one more time.
I just think if you're talking about the plans, it's important for the public to see it in case they have
Yeah.
questions, so.
Yeah. I don't know. It's opened on my desktop. I just can't seem to,
You gotta click in the Zoom screen, you gotta click on shared screen.
Yep.
And then it'll give you an options of screens to share. And then it'll bring up one of them as your, nope. Nope, you gotta click on the plan set. There you go.
that it?
That is it.
Okay, good. Okay, so if you look at the left side of the cover sheet here, you can see that we changed the scale of this locus so that our subdivision, can you see the cursor that I'm moving? You can, okay.
Yep.
So
Yes, we
you
can
can
see it, yep.
see, so this is our subdivision, and this is the abutting subdivision on the west side, and then also on the east side. So that gives the people in the neighborhood a little better look at where we fit. So that's that was a request of one of the abutters. And then just so that you can see, here are the 4 lots with Auburn Street up at the top of the page, and then the roadway comes south about 500 feet to serve 1, 2, 3, 4 lots. Topography here, and as I said, we show the development of each of the 4 lots with a house, septic system. This is a roof infiltration area, driveway, and then grading is also shown for each of the lots. The roadway grades down from the street into the site at 2%, and then at a point we actually have a vertical curve and the grade continues downward at 4%. So one of the waivers we asked for was to have catch basins located at the intersection of the road. and it's really not necessary in this case since we're you know, grading away from Auburn Street. So that was one waiver we requested, and then we also asked for a waiver from a landscaping plan, which we don't think is really necessary in this case. We provide the street trees that the subdivision regulations require, and you know, it's quite a big site actually for 4 lots, and a lot of this site is going to remain undisturbed, and if there is vegetation, then that's going to remain. A lot of the site is actually cleared and open field, so our feeling was just the regular street trees that are required in the subdivision regulations would be sufficient. And then people are gonna landscape their own lots as they develop them.
Mr. Gallagher, while you're on this page,
Mhm.
so on both sides of the street, there's a roadside swale with infiltration, correct?
Right. Yes,
So the detention basin, there's no infiltration in there, right?
there isn't. There's, if you look, there's swales on both sides of the road, and then they discharge into an infiltration basin at the end of the hammerhead, and then whatever remaining stormwater goes into a detention basin, and then a discharge that eventually winds up in the wetlands.
So
But
will
this-
that detention basin hold water?
It'll hold some water in the, you know, the heaviest storm events. But
Will it hold water for, what do our regulations say? I'd have to look it up, 24 or 48 hours. Does it hold water
Yeah.
for a period longer than that?
no, it won't hold water for longer than that, no.
Okay. And how deep is that?
It's really only about, it's less than 2 feet.
And that's more of like an emergency. Most of the water should be infiltrated, but on
Correct.
severe storms, any overflow from those recharge areas will go into there and will dissipate within the required time frame.
That is exactly the case, yes.
And those 4 circles, those are the telephone poles that serve the house that's off this property. Is that correct? They're being removed.
Yes,
So everything for this neighborhood is being proposed underground, and you'll also carry the utilities underground to the house out back. Is that correct?
yes, that is correct.
What about the driveway that now cuts through the site to the house out back? When will that be constructed in this process?
That driveway has to be constructed at the beginning of this process. We have an approval to do that from the Conservation Commission. And, you know, we intend, or the applicant intends to build that driveway at the beginning of this process. And if the board wants to make that a condition of approval, that would certainly be acceptable. That's his intention anyways, but yeah, the Imhoff property at the rear, they have to have, you know, we have to maintain access to and from that property. So we have to build them a new driveway before we can really start construction on the subdivision.
I also saw one of Mr. Tanzi's comments today was that there's been no water impact form submitted yet.
No, there has not.
Has the water department been involved in the design at all in this? Have they given any feedback in terms of design? Are you proposing looping, not looping?
Yeah, we're proposing looping. We basically just loop it into the subdivision and loop it back onto the same water main, and that's, you know, that's per the water department's request.
And there is a fire hydrant proposed? I just can't see it on this.
There is. There is, not sure if I can zoom this up or not, but there is a fire hydrant proposed within the subdivision.
Go to the plus next to the page 4 of 8. Go up, go up, go up. up to the top.
Okay, let me just
Does-
see.
does-
I've got
The
a,
zoom in next to the number 4. Right of Ask
oh,
Copilot.
okay, I'm sorry. I've got stuff in the way here on my screen.
It's okay.
Is there, I wonder if there's a way to move that stuff? Um, you know what it is? My menu items for share and all that stuff is right on top of those plus. Let me just see if that, okay, there we go. Okay, let's see. Well, there's actually a hydrant right on Auburn Street, almost directly across from our entrance. So you can see that. You can see this hydrant, I hope. And
Right, but is there a hydrant proposed in the neighborhood?
you know, I think
If your road's 500 feet, what do we say, 300 feet, you need a hydrant?
it's 5 every 500.
Has the fire department commented on that, or the water department?
No,
I think I see a hydrant located on just to the left of that corner bound, right near where your cursor is, the next one up, Frank, on the curb right there.
right there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a
Yes,
hydrant, I
yes.
believe.
Yes, and that's at about Station 4. It's about 4 plus 25, so it's about. So we have one right at Auburn Street, and then we have one almost at the end of the street, the proposed new street.
So say that again, Mr. Gallagher. Is there a hydrant proposed in the neighborhood or no?
Yes, at Station 4 plus 25.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tanzi, have you reviewed the detention basin and the drainage, and does it comply with our rules and regs?
I have, yes, I don't have any further comments on them.
Any other board comments or questions at this point? No one?
No.
Yeah, Mr. O'Brien, at this
Hey.
point, why don't we open it up to public comment? Is there anybody from the public that would like to ask questions or speak on behalf of this project?
Sure. I think I have a message in the chat. It was not in the public, but they sent a direct message. We have Daniel's iPhone who wants to speak. Daniel, you have the floor. Right, I'm clicking to unmute you. All right, Daniel, if you'd like to speak, speak now. could unmute yourself, Daniel.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak while we're waiting for Daniel? Okay. How about staff comments or other
Well,
comments?
I guess as Daniel tries to figure it out, or if you want to put it in the chat, I could reread it out loud. That would be part of the record. If you want to unmute yourself or speak. But no, I provided a staff memo with some possible conditions of approval. You know, we did provide Mr. Tanzi's letter, as well as we did have the physical documentation as spoken earlier for the bounds. I think some of the comments that I provided were nothing too crazy. I'm fine with the waivers provided. I think just kind of looking at this plan is just making sure that the driveway relocation is part of any decision, as well as making sure that the property in the rear, that there's a proper utility easement to allow that to continue in the future. But other than that, I think I provided a staff memo to the board that those are the conditions I feel are appropriate for this particular project. But I think Daniel has figured out his phone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Daniel Zani, 20 Old Farm Road. I just had a question about the driveway that's going to be put in. I see it's the first thing that has to happen and it's not on the plan. And I was just curious about that area. It says it's going to be gravel and it seems like it's pretty wet over there. It's not a wetland per se, but it is extremely wet. I'm just curious how much fill and how they will bring that up to like an elevation across there without getting so wide that it impacts like the wetlands a little bit.
So that
How do you
Mis-
stack gravel, I guess, is the
Mr. Gallagher, you can answer
Mm-hmm.
that, but there was a public hearing that the neighbors were notified on for the Concom hearing, correct?
That is, yes, that's correct. And we had hearings with the Conservation Commission. We showed them plans of that proposed driveway. It's near the wetland. It's not within the town's 25-foot wetland buffer. It's outside of that. And as far as the grades, it's really pretty much just placing a gravel driveway at the grade that's already there. So it's an exercise in just stripping out material that's not suitable and then it's like making a box cut and then bringing in gravel to fill in that box. So it doesn't really involve regrading as such. It's just excavating probably the top and the subsoil and then just replacing it with gravel.
okay.
And we
so
do
you're
have,
following, yeah. Gotcha.
yeah,
So you feel it wouldn't go past 12 feet wide as it shows in the plan?
right, it wouldn't.
Okay, great.
And just to be clear, Mr. Gallagher, that is approved with Concom already. Is that what you said earlier?
Yes.
So you won't be going up in elevation and elevating like a pad and stuff. It'll be following the grade.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Zani. Do you have anything else?
thank you. No, that's good. Thank you so much.
So I guess after discussing that too, I guess in terms of it being approved through conservation through an NOI, I guess we could condition, if we're looking to make sure that the driveway is properly completed prior to either work or endorsement or first building permit, making sure that a certificate of compliance is completed for that driveway, just to make sure that everything's okay, for the property in the rear.
Okay. All right, so then, Mr. O'Brien, I'm looking at your, I'm looking at the decision letter that you sent out today. So prior to the first lot release, the issuance of the building permit. So basically, we need a HOA recorded
Mhm.
for the subdivision because it's going to remain private in perpetuity, outlining the responsibilities of all the homeowners. There needs to be that homeowners association responsibilities needs to be tied to the deed of each lot prior to any lot release, correct?
Yes, what I'd like to kind of reiterate, and I kind of add a little extra to the decision so we don't have to go back to our subdivision rules and regulations, is that the applicant is stating that they're complying with everything in our subdivision rules and regulations based on the subdivisions 4 and below. And then they're asking for 2 waivers from everything else. So our subdivision rules and regulations make it abundantly clear about surety and homeowners association information as part of typical subdivision language. But we're just reiterating it in the decision because that's the document that's going to be recorded, and no one's going to go back and look at our subdivision rules and regulations every time something happens for this particular subdivision. So that language is added as part of it. But yeah, the homeowners association language, we've added some timing language for what our expectation is and when we receive it prior to, whether it be endorsement, first permit, or request for a lot release.
Yeah, I mean, that's important that it's done before a lot release, because the minute a lot's sold, it just, to somebody else, we always have problems, so.
Yeah.
All right, and I see that's in the draft decision letter that you approved. Mr. Tanzi, do you see any, do you have any objection to the 2 catch basins at the intersection being removed? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
No, I don't have any objection to it.
I mean, was that reviewed and you were comfortable with it and you think it's a good idea? The water does flow in the right direction to the swales.
Right, yeah, they're being picked up by the swales. This is very much in line with what we approve on 4-lot subdivisions is side swales
Okay.
on the roadway with a hammerhead like what they've got. So I didn't see anything outside the norm for a 4-lot subdivision.
All right, great. All right, so we have a draft decision letter by Mr. O'Brien. Are there any more staff or board comments or questions? Before we take a motion, just Mr. O'Brien, I want to make sure the public's had adequate opportunity to speak. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak?
This time, the only one I had was Daniel that spoke, but I think that's all I have for public comment. So, I think it's appropriate to,
Close the
if you
public hearing.
choose to, close public hearing and deliberate on this matter.
All right, so do we have a motion to close the public hearing
So moved.
by Mr. McDonald? Do we have a second
One second.
by Ms. Rojas? Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, so just discussing the project and coming up with a decision. Mr. O'Brien did propose a draft decision letter. Do you want to bring, I have it in front of me, Shane, on my computer, but do you want to bring it up?
I'd love to. Let me just share my screen. Make sure things.
So we'd have to vote on the waivers, and one of the initial waivers was the poles, and that's been removed, correct?
I don't believe it was an initial waiver. I think that was something that we caught
All right.
throughout the process, and that was changed on the plan. So there was no need to alter the waiver request because it was done.
Right, so if you go, it's pretty much our standard stuff until you go to number 16, I believe, right? That's where
Yeah,
you
I've
start.
added a couple, through my month leave, I've decided to kind of add some more stuff. I've gotten more wise, so I did add some more additional things. But no, typically 16 is what we included in terms of typical language
For the full lot
for
subdivision.
roadway operation and maintenance. I think what I've included, because we've had some issues in the past, that would be number 17, is that we've received a language of the responsibilities of the homeowners association and making it clear that this road is shall remain a private road in accordance with our subdivision rules and regulations.
Okay, so Shane, in addition to these, we talked about a driveway construction and sign off prior to the beginning of construction of this site. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in my draft decision, I included that the applicant should provide information to staff and board regarding the relocated driveway prior to endorsement. That's number 32.
Well, I think we talked about in the hearing prior to any construction of the roadway.
Sure.
That driveway needs to be completed and signed off on by Concom.
You're looking for the receipt of a COC?
Correct.
All right.
Well, I mean, they have to be able to use their driveway if we're going to
No,
construct that road.
I agree. I'm just trying to think in my head, there's not really a construction permit that goes through us. It would have to be some sort of other mechanism that we would need to utilize. Because I know you're saying in terms of if they start constructing the roadway, but I get notified if someone's requesting a pre-construction meeting, not necessarily when someone's taking down trees and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think in my head on the fly what we could stipulate it as.
Why don't you say prior to the construction, prior to any construction of the roadway, the driveway serving the property out
Yeah.
back, whatever
Sure,
that
and then
is,
I guess our action would be a cease and desist and
has to be completed and signed off on.
sure, okay. So that's
And-
fine. I'll do it. We'll do receipt of COC, completion of the driveway and COC prior to construction.
And I would also say that, if they haven't done a water impact and they haven't had the system looked at, which, I mean, typically most subdivisions do that before they file.
Mhm.
I think we should just note that it's subject to, the water department approval and the application process.
Yeah, well, the water impact form necessarily isn't really, from my inclination, not really a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It just seems like it's an informational piece to the water department. I think as long as you pay a connection fee, I don't have any inclination that the town's not going to provide water as long as a connection fee is provided, unless there's a new some sort of new policy in place.
Well, I'm just saying, if the water department hasn't looked at this yet and we're approving a design on the plan, it should be subject to, water department review, that's all.
No, every project that I get, I submit to all departments, and whether or not I get comments or not, I would forward it along to the board.
Did we get any comments on this or no?
I think there was a comment about concerns about water supply at some point, but I'm not sure if I received that when I was on leave. I don't believe I received it for this project.
Yeah, we get that one for another one today, but all right.
Sure.
But I just think we should put that it's contingent, whether or not they get the plan or it should be contingent upon their approval. that's all.
Prior to, okay, we can make, rather than shall provide, that we receive one prior to endorsement. If that's appropriate.
Sure. You don't have
So
any issue, you don't have any issue with any of the waivers?
Let me just relook at them. I'll provide them actually on the board. No, well, the first one, not really an issue in terms of that. I think that's really dependent on the slope.
Yeah, doesn't really apply to a full lot subdivision.
As well as, I think based on.
Yeah.
Number two, it's. In terms of a landscape architect, I think that's more appropriate for site plans. Whereas we make it abundantly clear that street trees are to be provided to this board, and we have proper abilities through landscaping bonds that we could utilize to allow for tree replacement and proper tree maintenance. So I'm not totally worried about that.
Okay. All right, do we have any other board comments or concerns or questions or additions to conditions?
Mr. O'Brien, I believe you also mentioned a potential condition about protecting some kind of utility easement out back.
Yeah, we can add an additional 33rd comment in terms of making sure that an easement or some sort of a utility easement be provided as part of this approval, to just to make sure that all utilities on the adjacent site that are affected by this. I think primarily it's electric, because I didn't see any water or sewer go to that rear parcel. So I think it'd be primarily making sure that there's some sort of electrical easement or utility easement allowing for that continued use.
Well, there may be a water line there too, so it should be all utilities, right?
Yeah, a utility easement, make sure that's recorded, or to just.
I'm sure water goes that way as well.
Yeah, because I think it would be more appropriate to have that kind of documented, because from a legal perspective, it would be you don't want the assumption that there's a prescriptive easement on an existing water line. So I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, might as well.
All right, any other conditions other than the ones we discussed?
No.
Mr. O'Brien, can you think of anything? Yeah, we're good.
All good.
Do you have a sense of what we need to add based on our discussion?
Yeah, it would be an amending of conditions 31 and 32, as well as an addition of a 33rd condition of a utility easement prior to endorsement. So I'll provide that language in a draft format to you, Mr. Chair, to review.
And then them filing a water impact report and connecting with the water department.
Yep, that would be number 32.
Okay.
Amending the 32nd condition.
All right, do we have any motion based on our discussion, or is there any more discussion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve with the 33 conditions discussed.
By Mr. McDonald, do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Geller. Any discussion? I'll take the roll. Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
We
Geller.
need to
All right.
vote
Thank
on the
you.
waivers.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I apologize. So there were two waivers, if I remember. One was for a landscape plan and the other was for the catch basins at the street.
Yeah,
we have
that
a-
would be the waiving of the requirement for catch basins to be installed at street intersections, based on
Yeah.
the proposed roadway slopes.
And the landscape plan.
Yeah, landscape plan by a landscape architect.
So do we have a motion on those two waivers
So moved.
by Mr. Geller? Do we have a second? So motion to approve, Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Do we have a second
Second.
by Ms. Rojas? Any discussion? Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay. Probably should have done those first. I apologize.
It's okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item up, We have 456 Bedford Street. This is map 62, lots 34 and 8. This is a proposed expansion of a parking count pursuant to section 10.6, site plan approval. This is again continued from February 7th. Mr. O'Brien, we don't have any update on the cleanup up there, so we're just going to continue this tonight. Is that correct? Until we get some more
Yeah, and I haven't
feedback?
heard, I don't believe the applicant is, I don't see the applicant here. From my understanding is that the site still has not been cleaned by the owner. So I guess if that's the basis of proceeding with this project, then you would have to continue it until that's resolved, or unless the board wishes to approve a project conditioned on the cleaning of the site.
So is Mr. Rulli still with us or is he gone?
No, Mr. Really left. So but what
So,
I
so
ta-
has there been any enforcement by the town in terms of a cease and desist letter or a conservation request or?
I
Yeah,
think there was a letter, a certified letter provided to the owner of the building, not the applicant that's currently before us, who is a tenant of the building, but to the actual owner of the building.
has the town followed up on that at all, do you know?
I don't believe there's been a couple conversations as well as a couple site visits. But no, I believe no action from conservation yet at this time, and that's a means of fining and what have you.
Okay, so we'll just, do we have a motion to continue 456 Bedford Street to our next meeting? Which would be March 20th
I could set a motion to continue to the
by
next
Ms. Ro-
meeting.
by Ms. Rojas. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
By Mr. McDonald, any discussion? Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes,
Mr. Geller,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Let me yes. Okay, so Mr. McDonald, I didn't warn you. I apologize. Item 5, we have a preliminary subdivision plan. This is a 4-lot subdivision with easements. It's a preliminary subdivision plan pursuant to the planning board subdivision rules and regulations. I have property in the vicinity, so I am going to recuse myself.
Okay,
I'll,
no worries.
I'll log off and when Mr. Or I'll just mute everything and go do something else and Mr. O'Brien can let me know when time to come back on.
Sure thing.
Alrighty. So 0 Winter Street, do we have the applicant here ready to present?
Believe we have Silva Engineering here.
Larry, if you're there, on you.
Believe Rebecca was here as well as someone from Silva.
I see Larry and Rebecca in there, but
Okay, I am here.
oh, perfect.
Larry's
Hello.
supposed to be here somewhere. I will share the screen.
Sure thing.
probably fall asleep.
Not Larry. He
In
lives
the
for
midst
this.
of all this excitement.
Okay. He really needs to get on the call. He might have taken the moment to go take Boone out.
Let the record show.
Right? Okay. Well, we have a preliminary subdivision off of Winter Street, 4 lots. I read through, Mr. O'Brien, your preliminary comments. Do we just want to tackle some of them right now off the bat, or do we want to,
Sure, we can
Sure.
fill some dead air.
right? Because the biggest one would be your comment that I'm jumping all over the place, that we
The-
can't do a residence in a business B,
That
right?
is correct. That would be
So-
absolutely correct.
So what is the thought process to rezone?
I would say that I would like to have a kind of a discussion
With the idea? Yep.
with the idea, I guess. It doesn't necessarily have to be before this board. But my recommendation to this board and recommendation to you is that you cannot build a residential structure in a business zone.
Correct.
That's clear. We don't allow for use variances. So there would need to be some sort of rezoning of this property to allow for that, as well as to prevent the impression that we're spot zoning to allow for one particular property. There would have to be multiple properties included. So I think we should have a discussion after this meeting or after this preliminary subdivision with the intent that before you come before this board for a definitive subdivision, that is resolved. Unless
So
you
at one
wish to.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but at some point in the office, we discussed the idea of utilizing this area for the dwelling, leaving it outside of the business B, and maybe within the 30-foot squishy zone that we have there, and place the dwelling over here in the residential district. It was a thought in the office. I didn't come to fruition yet, but since you brought it up, what's the thoughts on that? Not that this is necessarily the audience, but let's just get it out there.
Yeah, I would have to see how it would be designed. Ultimately, if you're coming before us for a definitive subdivision, your responsibilities are the building box.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's
Yep.
making sure that that building box can fit within that area. Looking from a more long-term planning approach, I think that there's opportunities for a rezoning of that area. It's just, I guess, a question for your client in terms of what their future aspirations for, the site itself is pretty wet, but I just didn't know if there was future aspirations for the applicant or the owner of the property to utilize this for commercial purposes. Ideally, we wouldn't want a
it was
commercial
never-
venture.
Yep. No, it was
We
never
wouldn't want a
intended for
commercial
that.
venture to come off
Right.
a residential subdivision.
So if I can time out, I know Larry says he's trying to get on, can't join, and he can't unmute.
Is he the one on the phone?
It's a good question. He was on them.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a *99, but I'll click to ask to unmute for him. I know
Hello?
Larry just wants these meetings in person again.
That's his cell phone. He couldn't connect via computer. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I'm not able to join.
So
leave the
I'm
meeting, I
Fenway
guess.
Park.
I'm
Can you
gonna
hear us,
have
Larry?
to- Okay, I just took my volume down on the computer. When I tried to join, I could not join video or any other way. So I don't understand what's going on. This
Hey,
is
you
the
did
second
it.
time this has happened. Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this is the subdivision that we're proposing is under the 1 to 4 lot. It's a 667 lineal foot road. The question that you had just brought up regarding the zone line, this is not intended to be a business use on that lot. We want that to be residential. Our problem is that this zone line is very deep from Bedford Street. And now that in recent years, when changes were made to the bylaws to not even allow for any kind of exceptions for residential in a business or industrial zone, it leaves no options except changing zone lines. And that just doesn't seem to be the right way to get around it. But that's the only mechanism now to be able to resolve a situation like this where obviously lot 1 wants to be residential. So I don't know if that answers your question, that there is no intention to do business here. It's just that we
No, I
don't
understand.
we don't have control over a zone line that you guys have that is so deep that it goes into residential areas of Bridgewater. The same thing happened years ago, but there was a mechanism to make a change on it before, and that was in the South Business District, reaching all the way back to Lyman Place.
Yeah, and
and
you know, I would agree with you, Larry, because you do look at a lot of properties just from a planning approach. There's a lot of properties in this Business B area that are, you know, even left of Flagstone Place all the way down to Flag Street that are Business B off these side roads that are, you know, surrounded by residential properties and residential uses. But you know, being that we don't allow for use variances anymore, as you spoke of, you know, for this, I would say for this one to kind of proceed, and if when we get to a point of a definitive subdivision, you know, being a preliminary subdivision, we're just chatting and making sure that we're okay with the initial design. But I guess based on this, you would probably want to relocate that house to within the business within that residential C district. I know there's an intense slope over there, and it would require a lot of excavation that I'm assuming those abutters would totally not be thrilled about. But unfortunately, as presented and with the current zone line where it is, that's I wouldn't say ideal location, but it's the location that our zoning allows for.
So you don't see a mechanism in which the town will join in sponsoring a change in zoning that allows for it to go around properties like this?
I wouldn't say that we wouldn't be opposed to it. I would say we couldn't spot zone for this particular property. And I think that we would have to look holistically at some of the areas that I previously stated left of Flagstone, potentially down to Flag Street, as possible locations that could be expanded into the residential C.
Well, I think there's another mechanism too, Shane.
Sure.
One of the mechanisms is that when you go to the section in the zoning bylaws that talks about properties that are in two districts, that are split by a district, there is wording in there, but the wording that's in there says that you can expand the use of the larger portion of the lot into the smaller portion by I think it's 30 feet or something or other. I think there's a mechanism to be able to change some of that language in there to be able to handle these kinds of situations, not just this one, but other ones where it makes sense to apply it to, even if it was wording that was to, you know, that if it's split, that you have the option of utilizing, you know, the lesser intensive zone, or something to that matter. There's other ways that it's worded and before.
I think in either case, if we're talking about a potentially sponsored bill to go before the town council, I think that we need to have kind of a deeper discussion, especially with probably the building inspector and director, as well as I think I guess myself, for those actions. You know, I can only kind of recommend based on what we currently have. Just kind of looking at this from a preliminary design standpoint, it's clear that the use of a residential building is within the Business B. And if we're going to kind of go through loopholes and footnotes, I'm sure that there would be plenty of properties within this area that would kind of look to utilize that. So that's just my comments. I know
not a loophole. I'm just saying a new definition of how to handle properties that are split by zones.
Right. Okay.
I'm not
so
saying a loophole. I'm saying a better one. That's all.
If we're looking for either a zoning map amendment or zoning language amendment, we're looking at council action. So I guess my recommendation is either way, prior to this coming before the planning board for a definitive subdivision, is that some sort of council action, as we discussed, occur as to clean this up.
I agree.
Cool.
And that's what we were going to pursue. But our thoughts were is that we would pursue it by looking to modify the zone in this particular area. But I guess
right,
you and
yeah.
I can sit down and go over what the potential options are
Sure.
for trying to do that, because it doesn't make any sense to develop this and have a business portion in there that can't be used for a residential house. So that's one of the reasons, or the main reason for us bringing it forward as a preliminary, was to sort of flush out this whole issue about the zone change. And the other is, and this is quite important, is that we want to make sure that this is on the radar screen for the town to know that this subdivision is going to take place, because they have plans of redoing Winter Street in the spring.
Gotcha.
And we don't want to be precluded, from being able to do this subdivision once that road is redone.
Oh, Larry, we gave curb cut permits off after work was done on Elm Street. You don't think we're gonna give you a curb cut permit off Winter?
We need a water line.
Oh, water line. Oh,
We need
okay,
a water
yeah.
line.
Oh, different
So we
different
want to make
departments.
sure that we have the ability to stub into, off the layout and into this site in advance of that work being completed, because I don't want to be going through that later.
Sure thing. If you can pay the bill, then by all means.
Well, that's the reason why we have to do it. That's why we brought it to you, so that it's known by everyone that there is a subdivision coordinator.
Sounds good. And
So
this is gonna be.
Those are the main reasons why we brought it forward in this way. We don't always bring preliminaries in advance of definitive subdivisions, but
Sure
we've had
thing.
two
And this is-
recently that have been that way.
And then you do show it looped. So okay, that was my other question.
Yeah.
But
I loop it down to right about here,
cool.
midway.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
just so you understand, there is some serious grading that's shown. We don't show as much over the property line, but there is some on the right side, and that's we would secure a temporary grading easement from the property owner to the right. To the left, we're going to have to retain it unless we get a similar kind of agreement to address it. It's sort of an abrupt kind of hill that comes up and comes back down. It's kind of an odd area in terms of topography.
Sure.
In that stretch, comes up quickly and goes down quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the only thing I could possibly recommend is just making sure that you have maybe just depending on if in the future you do some additional test pits to see if the feasibility for some roof drainage systems, or if you design it in a way where roof runoff
Right.
is appropriately taken care of.
Okay, so now that we've dealt with the technical matters, and I want to know which members here were the ones who were thinking that I was sleeping or that I was somewhere else instead of being on this the Zoom call here.
Well, Pat did recuse
No,
himself.
it was very frustrating to try to get on when it needed to click. It couldn't click on. Happened to me once before. So I'm not sure why it does that.
Do you need a vote on anything, Mr. O'Brien, or is this basically just a powwow info session kind of thing?
No, it would be a vote based on recommendations. I would say that we would probably look to, because overall most of this is fine. But yeah, I think the matters that I brought up need appropriate attention. That in case, the applicant, we send the applicant the go ahead for the definitive subdivision. We want to make sure that they're conditioned tightly, because we don't want to be surprised with the definitive subdivision that is completely that doesn't listen to the comments that we spoke of today. So
right.
I'm fine with the allowing this to kind of move forward based on a heavily conditioned what if letter that I'll provide to yourself to review, as well as town clerk and the applicant.
So that would entail things like, they have to get some kind of zoning relief of some sort before this could move forward, or
Sure, if based
relocate
on
the
based on the plans provided, that it would be inappropriate to have the house located on lot 1 where it is. Information about what the boundaries of the drainage easement, the roof drains. So if the applicant wanted to proceed with this subdivision as designed for 2, 3, and 4, we have no issues with. But if the house was to be, if the house was supposed to be built, it would be located within the building box within the residential C. So the applicant doesn't do an improper job providing a building box where a house couldn't be built at residential C. It's just a matter of they provide a plan that shows a house on it in a different zone. So we can't really, recommend that would be something that we would allow for.
Okay, I think I get it. I think I've only ever seen one of these before. So bit of a new process for me.
So yeah, it would be, it would be.
What's
that, Larry?
No, I was gonna say, so what you're really saying is that you would continue it tonight for you to be able to provide a draft decision letter on the preliminary?
It's
and
up to
then they'd vote on it, or would they vote on it tonight? Which one?
I would say I would kind of leave that up to the board, I guess. Like I said, it's a 4-lot subdivision, but the recommendations that I would have to the board would be what I previously stated, as well as relocation of that second page is making sure that you relocate the house on lot 1 within the residential C district. You do properly provide a building box where you could meet the setbacks for, and you would have to alter the proposed topography over there. But overall, what we're recommending is that we're kind of okay with what's provided here. But if you want, or you feel this is okay to be continued to I guess a much later date, that council action occur first.
Oh, no, for the preliminary, we don't expect that.
Sure.
For the preliminary, we just want that you agree with it in principle, the way it is, how it's laid out. I mean, that you're okay with us going to the next step with definitive, with the understanding that that the zone issue has to be resolved. Otherwise, a lot or a house cannot be built in the position shown on lot 1. I would like it, though, that the planning department gives notice to the other entities in town, such as DPW and so forth, that this subdivision is expected to be coming within the next 6 months, and that for that reason, they want to make water connections and so forth. So I want it to be them on notice that this is going forward, so that they don't
Good
just
question,
buzz down
if I
Winter
may.
Street without letting anybody know.
Sure.
So the word is, so this is happening? I've heard that word is a lot. Explain to me that, someone, please.
Winter Street is proposed to be rebuilt in the spring.
So that's the development that is happening.
No, this would be a subdivision off Winter Street.
Right, there's no option here?
In regards, when you could approve or disapprove the preliminary subdivision.
Right, so I'm just trying to get clarification on the is this could not be happening, this 4-lot subdivision in any form, as well as could happen, right? It's not is happening.
It would be the
it's a
same
may.
case. I would say that the difference is that this is being a preliminary subdivision, that this isn't necessarily a public hearing. It's more of a meeting of the planning board and the applicant to make recommendations and
On how to
comments
present.
in the future. Yes.
Yeah, in the future on this specific subdivision.
Correct.
Okay.
They could come in with something different. They could come in with a 3-lot subdivision in the future. This is just kind of really a preliminary discussion based on the current design.
Right.
Oh, go ahead, Ted.
Sorry. Sorry, and then essentially now we're saying we're gonna have, suggest two different paths coming from this preliminary discussion that we'll, vote on as far as, suggesting that, they go back to, the council to have that moved, or path two would be to keep that and move lot one dwelling into that, residential C location. Is that
That
what
would be,
I'm
that
hearing?
is correct. Those are the alternatives that I would suggest.
Okay,
If this were to proceed as definitive subdivision, if both aren't taken into account before definitive subdivision, I would say that's inappropriate to proceed, I guess.
okay,
Without
one last
major
question. Sorry, one last question is this normally, I mean, because this just seems like it should not be here yet, but is this planning board generally the platform for this banter?
Oh, yeah, it's a preliminary subdivision, so the
Okay.
banter is completely appropriate for this discussion.
Good. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, to the best of my understanding, because I get confused with these prelims too, because we don't see them too often. This is basically just a go ahead for like concept wise, like we don't have a major problem with this if you fix it one way or another the big issue. And I don't believe it's binding. It's not like we have to approve whatever comes in by default.
No, the only thing that would be affected would be the time frame to approve a definitive subdivision once submitted. So because an applicant submits a preliminary subdivision before a definitive subdivision, the time clock, once we start a hearing for a definitive subdivision, is shorter than if someone were to submit a definitive subdivision without a preliminary.
Okay, okay.
I believe also, I think in some cases, preliminary subdivisions allow for a locking in of zoning. If zoning were to change, but I doubt that this is the case for this particular
Yeah.
usage.
Okay. Anything else from the board, Mr. Geller, Ms. Pagone?
I'm good. I think he just wants to make sure he's going down the right road before he goes any further.
Yep. Okay. So what kind of motion would this be, Shane? I guess I haven't seen any of
It would
these.
just be, it would be to recommend the approval of the preliminary subdivision. Excuse me, based on the conditions I stated, that would include the two options in terms of the relocation of the house on lot one to be located within the residential C, or the alternative that the applicant pursue either a zoning amendment change or a zoning map change, as well as recommendations based on information about the drainage easement, if that drainage easement is current or proposed. If it's proposed, the outlines and boundaries of that drainage easement, as well as recommendations about roof drains and all that.
Shane, you're gonna draft something up, right?
Yeah, you guys don't draft anything up.
No, I know.
I know, I'm gonna draft something up. I'm busting you. Yes, I'll draft that language, and if appropriate, I will provide a draft to everyone to review.
Okay. Does anyone want to proceed with that, or?
So moved. I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision pursuant of conditions and discussions as discussed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mrs. Rojas.
Yes.
Would Ms. Pagone be voting on this one, Mr. O'Brien?
That is correct. Ms. Pagone is replacing Pat.
Ms. Pagone?
I'm a yes as well.
And I'm a yes.
All right.
Thank you
Talk
very
to you
much.
tomorrow, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
All right. I'll remind Pat to come back. You should text him. All right. Oh, he's back.
Back up. Perfect.
We can't hear you, Pat.
No,
Nope, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Hold on. All right, we'll try this one for now. All right, you can hear me all right?
All
Yeah.
good.
All right. So we have other business. Planning board minutes. Mr. O'Brien, get those over to us for December 6th.
Yeah, I think you guys have had it from, I don't believe December 6th or December 20th have been approved
Yeah.
yet. I did send them out, I think, resent them out. So I think we're looking for those to be approved.
All right, so we're on to item 5 on the business. We have minutes to approve. Do we have a motion to approve December 6th and December 20th?
so
I
moved.
can,
Mr.
I can
Geller,
second.
And by Mr. Geller and by Mr. Rojas, do we have any discussion? And Mr. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay, so we have Mr. O'Brien. I'm gonna skip down. I know we have Mr. Jemian here. He left but wanted to come back already. So he has an update on the tree committee. We're gonna jump down to board and committee reports.
he truly misses us. Who are you kidding?
I think he
Stayed here
does.
till stayed here till 9:30.
Miss you. After watching part of this, I won't say what I feel.
No regrets.
Now, you guys have had a long meeting. I will be quick. Since I'm your representative for the tree committee, I just want to update you on a few things in under a minute. As I think you're aware, Nicole Holmes, part of the tree committee, has worked hard submitting an application to for Bridgewater to become a tree city. The application went in December. We have been approved by the state board to become a tree city, but national also has to approve us. So we're waiting on that. And I suspect we will be approved shortly. One of the bigger projects that we're working on is redoing the tree ordinance that has been ongoing. I think we're about ready to wrap it up and send it to town attorney to look at it. Arbor Day this year, Nicole is working with the middle school to have a project for Arbor Day. We also intend to plant some trees. We've allocated $6,000 for tree planting at the senior center. We're lobbying, and you guys can help if you want. We're lobbying the town manager to recreate a forestry department. And I think he's been moving in that direction. We're also looking at a formula for mitigation. We have mitigation for tree cutting right now, and we're trying to work out an actual formula for how much we would get for tree cutting. You probably all realize it is in the new zoning that we can get mitigation for tree cutting. And lastly, we have a forum, and it's next Tuesday at 6:30 in person on trees. We have 2 presenters. One will speak about the importance of trees and the environment, and the other will speak on trees of New England and how to plant and how to care for trees. And I think it's going to go over very well. So if you're free Tuesday night, 6:30 downstairs in the library, you're all welcome to come. That's it. Thanks.
Right, that's next Tuesday at 6:30.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, next Tuesday, Pat. Oh, you muted yourself.
Tuesday at 6:30.
Tuesday the 12th, 6:30.
Thank you.
Ray, last time we talked, do you have do you know who those presenters are going to be?
I do.
That's all I asked. That's it. I did nothing else.
No, I do. Yeah, we have 2 presenters. One gentleman is from the college. He will speak on the environment. The other gentleman is from the DCR, and he will be good too. He's also a very big guy, so don't play around with him.
Sounds good.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ray.
Can you guys hear me or no?
If you
Kinda.
guys don't mind, I'll come and visit every once in a while, right?
Anytime, Ray.
Yeah, right.
Pat, you're
We
your
can't
mic's
hear
off
you
again.
anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God. All right. All right, so just while we're in board business, I guess, and before we go to planners report, I talked to Mr. O'Brien. Can you guys can hear me, correct?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
So I talked to Mr. O'Brien because it's been brought to my attention, a couple other people's attention. I think Mr. O'Brien's aware of it. But up on Elm Street, Lucini Bus Lane had a major expansion of a parking lot up against Route 24 without any site plan. And they were operating up there and they did wiring and probably no drainage or anything else. And another company, Norton, the Norton company, has developed two sites, fenced in, running a gravel operation on one, equipment on the other, again with no site plan. So I had spoken to Mr. O'Brien about it because I've had some people mention it to me. And I think some people have mentioned it to other people in town. So I think what we're looking for, Mr. O'Brien, is just some board consensus to send a letter to Mr. Solari to enforce that and ask for it, whether it be a cease and desist or something else, to have them come before the board and have an appropriate site plan like we require from everybody. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
we can
agree.
hear you. I think my only comment on that, Pat, is that I think the 900 Elm Street property has been properly noticed on the agenda in the past. So I think it's appropriate to, if the board wants me to pursue, sending a letter over to them. From a town.
When we're gonna ask Mr. Solari to.
Yeah,
Yes,
you know, because obviously we would have to provide a letter to Mr. Solari for zoning ordinance enforcement action. But we also have to involve Conservation Commission based on some of the review that we did for 900 Elm Street. I don't believe that the other Elm Street property would be affected by Conservation Commission. However, I'm gonna have to do some more research.
I mean, bottom line is we have three sites that have been developed without site plan, so we should ask Mr. Solari if the board wants to enforce that and to send it to the planning board, whether it's a cease and desist, or whether it's a warning letter, whatever it is, we require everybody to go through a site plan process and then you have to go through it as well.
Sure. No, I understand. So yeah, I can write something up for 900 Elm Street. And then I'm gonna have to look up more information about
Well, shit, aren't we just talking about asking Mr. Solari as the zoning enforcement officer to send letters to all three other sites?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I'll write something to Steve and I'll include you on it, Pat.
So I just want to get board consensus that, I have had a number of complaints. I know I've seen it. I saw it going up the highway. But I just didn't want to call Shannon and ask him to do it. I want, it's important to keep the board in the loop and make sure everybody's on the same page. And if we want to do that, we can ask him to follow through with it. If we don't, we can scrap it and let them operate without permits.
No, you're spot on. This has to be addressed. So yeah, I'm with you on this.
100%.
Right, do we have a motion to ask Mr. Solari to enforce the site plan requirement, either do a cease and desist or whatever he sees fit up at Elm Street with the two Norton sites and the Lucini site, and get them to come before us?
So moved.
Mr. McDonald, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Haley, any discussion? Mr. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
I'm sorry, it was Mr. Geller spoke on said yes when you said Mr. Haley.
Oh, all right.
It's Hardy.
Mr. Haley says yes as well.
All right,
There we go.
all right, I apologize, and then I made this, okay? When I said Mr. Rojas, I said that correct, right?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
5 yeses. Okay.
Some people may have voted twice, but you only get one vote, so.
I'll write it up. The minutes will reflect a proper
Right, but I think we're sending a letter to Mr. Solari to enforce those three.
That's
things,
correct. I'll write something to Steve and it'll be a letter that I'll let you look at, Pat.
All right, planner report, can you be quick?
Sure, I'm back. So we got a couple of site plans for the next meeting. I'll wrap that one in too, as well as a continuance for 456 Bedford Street. We'll be back on the site plan review radar for a couple projects. I've sent that information already to you board members, as well as those items are available online if any members of the public are interested in checking them out. The only other thing I have is that there is the Citizen Training Planning Collaborative Conference the Saturday of St. Patrick's Day weekend, as it is every year. It's in Worcester at Holy Cross. I can't recommend it enough. Unfortunately, I will not be attending this year, but I do recommend to any board members, if you're interested, to check it out. But that's all I got, Mr. Chair.
You kind of wrapped your planners report and items for next meeting all in one, right?
Yep, and then just, I guess, a point of information too, the form-based code ordinance will be before council, I believe, next week. So that's reaching its final steps as it goes to council.
Anything else from the board members?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Goodman.
I had a quick question. Since Mr. Jamian has left the planning board, as I understand it, how is this going to be handled with associate members? Does one get chosen, or does one have to put in for being made a full member? How does this work?
I can answer that question. So my understanding is that Mr. Haley has been appointed as a full-time member by Town Manager Dutton at a recent council meeting.
Okay.
Just to let you know, they don't let. So that's my understanding. But I believe that we do have a opening for associate member. So if you know anybody interested, please reach out to Town Manager's office, or if you have any inquiries from a town management perspective, reach out to the Town Manager's office.
Unfortunately, I do not have anybody. The only other person I would try to convince would be the person I live with, and frankly, her schedule is quite busy.
Mm-hmm.
Is Mr. Tansey still with us?
I am.
What is the, Mr. Silva brought up Winter Street tonight? What is the timeline for the redevelopment of Winter Street?
Yeah, we're looking to make some major improvements to the east side of Winter Street, the side of Winter Street that's east of Bedford. As you're aware, it's the road, that section of Winter Street has no real drainage in it, and it's in very poor condition, and we can't really repave it without solving the drainage issues. So and on top of that, the traveled way pavement meanders in and out of the right of way. So we're gonna do what's called a full depth construction, which is, it's not gonna be a mill and pave. It's gonna be rip it up, put in catch basins and some appropriate drainage, and align it as close as we can to what's out there without encroaching onto private property, and make sure that the width of the pavement is a uniform standard width of pavement, a 24-foot width pavement with a crown, and of course all the subgrade and the compaction will meet subdivision standards.
Will that be done in the spring, or will that be done in the fall?
I would say it's probably going to be done no sooner than the fall. I'm working on the plans now, and I've been, that's really been my focus last 2 months. And we have to get the money up for it. We think that we can get the funding for it. That'll probably be the deciding factor. It would have to go out to bid, of course, and but basically what we're looking to do is right at the entrance to the Dunkin' Donuts restaurant, all the way up to Conant Street. Just a full restoration of that road.
The water lines, if there
The
water line will remain.
The water line will remain. There's 2 catch basins at the corner of Winter and Conant Street. And what those catch basins are piped catch basin to catch basin, which is not good practice. It's not standard practice. Those basins, one of them is partly on private property because the alignment of that road is, like I said, it meanders in and outside of private property. But about, I don't know, I'd say about 100 feet down from the intersection of Conant Street, there's a natural low point there where a lot of puddling occurs, and that happens throughout that section of Winter Street, and that causes a lot of desecration of pavement, differential settlements, and cracking and potholes and so forth. So we're gonna revitalize all that drainage, redesign it, so that we won't have these standing water conditions. And when we repave the road, we won't have these settlement issues and cracking and pothole conditions that has plagued that section of Winter Street.
I just hope we do keep on that, even though I didn't sit down in that hearing, we should consider other developments, so we don't have to cut into that road after it's been paved for 6 months or something. So I'm sure you'll keep that in mind. But...
Yeah, maybe what we do is, at the time of construction, the developer paid to cut into that water main and then stub out into his site. And he'd have to pay for that to do that anyway. So
I appreciate the update. I just looking off like thorough update. It just was looking more like a timetable. So thank you though.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there anything else?
All good on our end.
There's a motion to adjourn. Jesus.
So moved.
Do we have Mr. Haley? Do we have a second?
Good second.
Ms. Ross? Mr. Haley, Ms. Ross, any discussion? Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Yes. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
See you later, everyone.
Have a
Have a
good
good
one.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.